start of the meeting, and I was live streaming now. This is just to make us real official, guys. So if you can read that and keep us all in the guidance of the law.
Sure. Hello, everyone. This is Mahvesh. I just wanted everyone to be aware that all our meetings are live streamed and recorded and will include captions. The members of the public will be able to watch the meetings in real time through the live stream links on our website or through the posted recordings afterwards. The members of the public can comment on the live streams and recordings on each platform. Members of the Department of Aging staff will be moderating those comments and will share them with the workgroup chair and the members. All members should mute themselves during the meeting when not speaking to reduce any background sound. The mute option is on the bottom left of your meeting window. If the microphone image is gray, you are unmuted and we can hear you. If the microphone image is red, you're muted. If you have any issues with sound, you can message in the chat and our team will help troubleshoot. The chat is the square speech bubble on the bottom right. In addition to taking yourself off mute when speaking, you can enter questions or comments into the chat. And if you would like to raise your hand to speak, you can click on the picture of a hand and we will recognize you. And we have already started the live stream and the recording. Thank you.
All right. Now we're all official. All right, we will go over the agenda a little bit. Today's going to be a lot of working. As I said, this is our third or fourth meetings. I think today is the day that we really do a lot of work. We kind of got to figure out between now and maybe our next time how much, if we need to meet additionally, and where we need to go, and then use our fourth one to really finish it up. I think then some of the writing will come afterwards. So I just want to kind of put that into perspective of today is the big day of us really making sure that each subgroup, and just to remind everyone, we have a subgroup going, which is our family caregivers. We have a subgroup going, which is our direct caregiver workforce. And we have a subgroup that is our 50 plus workforce group that has a lot of kind of sub thought processes in that one. So we have these three groups that we really need to be getting down to what is our one, major objective. Won't call it a goal because our goal is promoting economics, but our one major objective, and then getting to what are the 8 strategies we need to put in place to get this objective going. It might be cross, working with another agency to set up a study. It might be to go to Annapolis to present a bill. I mean, all sorts of things goes within strategy. That's the wide open. And there's strategies where we're really, really working to get this objective going. So we really want to try to make sure we get those. I'd really like each group, noting that the 50 plus workforce group is slightly behind because the other two have been working a little bit more. So it's okay. But I really like every group to be thinking that, hopefully by the end of this meeting, we've got at least our one objective and who knows, maybe one strategy, but to be working on that. If not, when are we going to get that one objective going? Because that's when we really, want to make sure that we're leaving ourselves plenty of time to work on the strategies. But also, I want to make sure that in our fourth meeting, and if we have to call another meeting, we can. I think I remember telling everyone I front loaded in our time frame in case we need another one. But I think it's very important that all of us collectively are talking about the strategies for each one of these, and that the subgroups don't just work independently, because I am almost positive a lot of our strategies are going to cross, which is good. Don't need to do double work, right? But if we have, whenever you've got a couple of strategies that we need to do that could accomplish a couple of things, that's smart. That's smart working, right? But we also need to make sure that of our objective and of our strategies that they're measurable. What is the goal of them? What's the time frame of each one of them? So if we're not about halfway finished, by around today, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. So really want to kind of encourage each person who's running the subgroup that we get to that point, or very quickly get to that point. So our next meeting, just to make sure, is anybody can help me out here? Well, my calendar's in December. Our next meeting is
October 22, I think. October 22.
there you go. Yep, just get to it. October 22nd. Thank you, Mavish. Yeah, October 22nd. So that'll be our final meeting. Again, I know caregiving has a meeting between then and then, and we can use that meeting for a lot of things. But I just really want to encourage that let's take this time right now to make sure that we are working on that. Is there any questions before we get to the breakout part of it? From the chairs, Janie, Teresa, Kathy, any questions of when we go into the breakout? Just so you know, I'm going to start my breakout going with you, Teresa. So we can keep talking caregiving, and then I might kind of switch over Kathy, and we've got somebody kind of in all of them from MDOA in case there's any technical problems. But yeah, Meg.
Sorry, I didn't see my name. I just want to make sure I'm in the breakout with Cheney and Chase. I don't know how to do that. Like, do I need to choose it? Will I be able to choose it?
I think we put you in.
Okay, good.
Julia, is that right?
Great.
Monica.
Yeah, for the over 50 work group, subgroup, I just sent Julia a report. It's called Advantage LA, and it's LA City, a whole report that really could short circuit what we have to do and adapt it. So in the link, I guess that was provided, on the subgroup folders, that link was not attached correctly. So I was just wondering, is Julia still on? If she can.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
It's linked to the resource folder, but I'm happy to put another copy in the subgroup recommendations as well.
No, see, it's the resource, but this is a totally different report that could really help us in our meeting today. So can you send that to this subgroup?
Absolutely. I'll
Okay.
I may have it. Is that the one you sent 2 weeks ago?
It's called Advantage LA.
Yep, I got it.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's in the resource folder, but I'll put it in your subgroup
I see.
folder. Yeah.
Okay.
I have it. It's up.
Shared it.
Will I
shared
be
it
able
with
to
your-
share?
Yeah. Can we share
Yes,
it while we're in the group?
Yeah.
You should be able to, yes.
Let me I'm popping the link, and I just wanted to make sure that the one that's in here
Yeah.
is the same.
It's a 67-page report. No pressure.
Oh, well, y'all have fun.
There's
There
a
was
lot.
shorter-
Teresa, I'm glad I'm going with you.
there's a shorter one from Colorado too.
Okay.
It has some similar data that we may be able to poach from. We'll talk when we get to
Yeah.
our group.
Okay.
67 pages, Monica.
It
That's
doesn't-
not shortening it.
Yes, it is, because a lot of it's not, it really gets down to the goals and strategies. So,
Okay, well, we'll pull it up when we get to the group.
yeah.
All right. Meg, did you have another question, or your hand still up from first? There you go. Okay. All right. If we don't have any more questions, we're going to get to the breakout. We're going to spend about 45 minutes. We may get out a little early. I will say with the caregiving, since Teresa and I are working kind of with another group, and if it's kind of short, we may finish up even earlier. We'll see. And then I'll pop over. So, you do have a way to do that. I just want to kind of reiterate, I would like for us to all come back together and have someone report when the group comes back for the last 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes apiece of, what was the objective if you got that far to pick it. and maybe what are some of the strategies so that everyone's kind of staying up with each other of where we're at. So just think about that too. All right, if we're at that, I'm gonna let Julia do her magic and send us into our work groups, and we will reconvene in 45 minutes with the big group.
If the breakout rooms are a little finicky, so if I accidentally add you to the wrong room, just pop back into the main room and I'll make sure you get assigned to the right one.
And you can do that by hitting something at the bottom, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the activity, little activity button.
There you go.
We have some muted. A bunch of you are muted. Let me see if I can unmute because we don't need to. I know you don't want to talk to me the entire time. Want me talking the entire time? You may have to unmute yourself because we have everybody's muted. So just be aware. I have Monica, Mary, Dora, and Bisma are not muted. So everybody else is muted, just to be aware of it. Now Bisma's muted. So pull this up. Okay. Just so everybody knows, Monica
Maryland Commission Task Force. There are a bunch throughout the state of Maryland. There are, I think, like 29 commissions. And I mean, there must be probably 100 to 200 task force on all sorts of things, like it could be on sidewalks, it could be on opioid, issues. They're just all over the state. So one of the things we kind of talked about in LRM is if this work is going on within another group, don't overdo their work. First off, they're probably farther along than we are. Teresa chairs the Commission on Caregiving for Maryland, which kind of took a pause because for a while they all of a sudden somebody thought that it went debunked and it didn't. So now it's back on track and really getting the group back together. But all of that group is talking about caregiving, family caregiving issues. So what we said is let's utilize that group of people to kind of talk about LRM. So Teresa took another subgroup from them that are talking about LRM initiatives and things like that. They aren't in the LRM, so this is why this group looks so small. But really, I don't know, Teresa, how many were on our last call? It's a nice group of people who've been talking about LRM and the issues that we're going and strategies that we want to work on.
There's at least 9 people who signed up for the group, but there are about 5 people on the call last time. I'm hoping that we have more on the call next time. The next meeting was on October 15th.
Yeah, and we'll want to make sure to have Karen invited and get Heidi invited in that too.
They're invited. They're already on the invite.
Perfect. Do y'all have that,
Heidi?
Karen and
I'll
Heidi?
make sure
Do you
that
have that
Heidi
on your
gets the
calendar?
Right, I'll send Heidi the link right now.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. So if you can send it again, maybe it went to clutter.
Okay, I'll send it out to everyone right now.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So Teresa, you want to just maybe recap where the group, how the group ended, and maybe let's see if we can, because I know we're kind of down to 3 objectives.
Mhm.
And then there's several reports out there. So I want to make sure everyone has their reports, but you want to kind of go ahead and get everyone called up to where we ended and what do we need to do today to keep talking this through?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. In fact, I have my notes here in front of me. I just sent out a recap to everyone a few days ago. And so on October 1st, we came together. We discussed one of the 4 epic goals of Longevity Ready Maryland, which is promoting economic growth. And during the meeting, we narrowed in on 3. You're not calling them goals. What are we calling them again? High level objectives.
Objectives. Yep.
3 high level objectives, and they were 1, direct care registry, 2, caregiver training program, or 3, SB 202 tax credit voucher. So those are the 3. We ended the meeting not sure which one we thought was not choosing one of the 3, but pretty much we were divided, equally divided on all of them. Some people really felt strongly about training, others felt strongly about the tax care credit, and so we left it at that. And so that's where we're going to pick up our next conversation with those 3 high-level objectives. And in my email, which I'll send out to this group as well, I think I included if I didn't, I don't see that I sent that. I did a little summary of some strategic goals for those high-level objectives. I did a little work around that. And so I probably didn't include it because I didn't want to sway anyone one way or the other. I encourage everybody to just really think about it so we can choose one.
And didn't you do a little poll? Did anyone, I know I did not, but
I did send out a poll. Let me see what the results are. So
Yeah.
I was hoping that maybe between meetings we could, we might be able to find some commonality. So let me take a look at that poll and see how it's doing. And again, I'm going to send that email out to anyone here who has not seen that yet. I think this is it right here. No, that's not it. I'll have to find it. Maybe you might want to talk about something else while I look for it.
I want to see if I can drop this link.
Oh, I set it up I'm sorry, I know where I have so many systems, it's in a different thinking. And Heidi, if you
Leslie,
could
I had a question.
in the chat for me, that would be helpful.
Mhm.
Leslie, I had a question about the document that you sent out. You suggested that we look at the, I think, second to last page where it was broken out geographically by what recommendations were made from different regions around the state. What was that? I didn't get a chance. I went directly to that page. I didn't have time to read any of the other stuff. Where was that
Yeah.
survey?
No, I'll go. Let me see if I can share. I think I can share my screen. JJ, I can share my screen within just this group, right?
Yes, there's a present now option at the
That's
bottom.
just going to go to this group, right? That
Yes,
goes to.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Can y'all see that? So this is what we talked about. So the Maryland Commission on Caregiving is up under the Department of Health Services. And so back last year, they commissioned a study to be done on caregiving. And so it's been going on. You can see the School of Social Work did it. It talks, and so we had the person come down and they talked a lot about, who was on, these are the people who were a part of it. This was kind of the statistics of it was, compared from 2014, what Maryland looks like now is 7 out of the 10 are women, 80% have have a greater than high school education, that kind of thing. And I won't go over all of them, but it just breaks down a lot of the statistics of the caregiving. There's a couple of slides there that we can talk about. Let me get to them. Monica, if you don't have this, I will send it to you after this. I'm a little bit easier on emailing them than I am putting them in our Google Drives, but So that's what, so this is where it came from. It got to talking about, what they're doing, the degree of difficulty, the stress and the strain of it. I thought this was a pretty interesting one. I mean, obviously we know this, but data, we can say all we want unless you support it with data. So this is a way that we take to Annapolis the data. But you certainly can see, how stressful it is, and that goes to support groups, and that'll kind of come up a little bit later. So just the time spent, the financial strain. I think the financial strain is a big part of what we're going to be writing in LRM, because remember, this is about promoting economics. There is a slide, it's either before or after this, that talks about how much time people had to take off. So anytime someone's taken off, there's a productivity loss with an employer. There's paid leave, that's a cost, which eventually will be a paid cost, to the state. That fund is debunked right now. So it's kind of silly to say that Maryland has paid leave. We don't, because it's not funded quite yet, but it's coming. So there is an economic part of this. Talk about their own self, their own health. Of course, if our caregivers are becoming less healthy, and that's around in here, they become that hits us economically. Again, these are just things, they're giving up their vacations, they're feeling isolated. All of these are precursors to other issues caregivers will have, which could cost the state money at some point in time, or it's going to cost them money, cost our health insurance. So there's the cost, it really has to kind of trickle down. This was it, this was a real big one. Look at this economic, economic things. People early retired, and this is a state that wants people working. The more people that are working in the state of Maryland, the more taxes we have and the higher our revenue is. I mean, and that's not to discuss whether or not that should be it, but that's a goal that our governor has. The leave of absence went from full-time to part-time. I mean, that could be unemployment issues, took time off during the day. So it really showed the economic challenge that caregivers are having, that, kind of comes there. It went on, and what we wanted to talk about was, and did somebody ask a question? Please just go ahead and stop me. I'm looking at the PowerPoints. I can't see the
It's
screen.
me. I just wanted to say that, one of the other things that happens a lot for us is we see caregivers whose jobs are in jeopardy because of the stress and strain they are dealing with at home. And when they lose their job, they lose their health insurance. And so then they don't have funds to take care of themselves. And then also sometimes that means they don't have health insurance for their spouse, their children. And then, of course, losing your income. We've got people who are losing their housing situation. So it's not just about the job itself. It's all the things tied to the job that implode when the job isn't there.
You're 100% right, Karen, and think about it like that. So if I have health insurance through my employer, but I now have lost my job for whatever reason, I had to, or I got fired, guess where you go to get health insurance? You get on the state insurance. That costs the state money. So, these are economic factors to caregiving that come back to the state. That's a great point. So there was so the one that I pointed y'all to was, this was an interesting, it's got a lot of words here. So most frequently endorsed resources needed. So by jurisdiction, and you can see all the counties here, they said it. And I saw very quickly a lot of repeats, which I know we have we had 3 objectives that we talked about that Teresa just said, which was caregiving training program. And I would say that the caregiving training program came from several other states, and several other entities are putting together, and a lot of the hospitals are doing it, where a caregiver, when they're caring for their loved one, tends to think about Maslow's hierarchy, their safety, their food, their bathing, their dressing, their grooming, and they're not as really involved in the part of caregiving that they need to be, because they're not aware of it. So these programs that came up with, how do we help train caregivers more about what's going on and how to be more involved as a caregiver. State of Massachusetts is doing it through the state because so many of their caregivers, the recipient is a Medicaid person, so they have access to them. What they found unequivocally is that a person who had been trained, the actual participant, so the actual older Marylander in this case, had less falls, less rehospitalizations, less doctor visits. So there was a really positive trickle effect of helping to train the caregiver. So a lot of states are adopting this particular thing. So that was one of our objectives that we talked about. The state registry is another thing that's going on from state to state of getting a resource of people who either would or could, and then you could add and be trained, and they would be eligible to work in the home, because one of the big questions, one of the big problems a caregiver at home has is they don't have anybody. You can go to a home health agency, but you're paying a lot more, but who might not go through that home health agency, but yet has criteria. And so that this would be a resource that they could go on in their county, specifically, maybe it's state run and then it's divided down county. It's a big undertaking, but other states are doing it and it's coming along. So there was one. And then of course the tax credit, which other states are doing too. And we attempted it, but it got watered down in a different way. So those were the three they were talking about. And I don't mean to throw a fourth one in. And maybe this is a strategy, but if you look, so many of them in most of the counties, and you can look at yours, Karen, you like the tax break and pay for them, but the resource list, a statewide resource list, so many of them put them up there. It's the number one in a lot of the counties, is that a better statewide resource list for caregivers. Now, that might come down to a resource list of caregivers. It could come down to a resource list of resources. So I'm not really sure. That's a big statewide resource list, but look how many of them put in there: service guide, statewide resource list. I mean, it was interesting. I know, Teresa, when you were talking, Allegheny said it was increased public recognition of the family caregiver. Like, who is even a family caregiver? I know that was something that was near and dear to your heart, because you just think you just are, but so this is interesting that some studies have already gone on that I think either could affect our big objective, but at least needs to get into our strategies. I think a lot of these things could get into our strategies. So that was the kind of the background of how they got to this, and then kind of the overall. So
It supports what we already know.
Yeah.
What we've already experienced, but many of us, and now we have data to back it up.
Yeah. So with that, so I guess of the group of what we're talking about, I don't know, in the meantime, Teresa, has anybody taken the poll of the objectives of the ones that are in there, and what's that looking like?
So I have the results of the poll. It was, there were only 4 people that took the poll. It was 50-50. Caregiver training program or the SB 202 tax credit. No one voted for the direct care registry. I just resent the email to everyone in this room. I sent the email with the summary of the last meeting, the link to the poll, and the Zoom link so you can register for the next meeting on October 15th. I also sent you a calendar invite so that you could have that calendar invite on your calendar. So you're all caught up now.
Okay. I don't know, Heidi and Karen, you are kind of the newer people of the 3 goals that is being talked about, or something else. What do you think in your area? I mean, Karen, in your county, or Heidi, in your expertise, would potentially be of, a large objective that LRM might want to do?
Teresa, you're doing such a good job of keeping us organized, and I appreciate it. And I feel really badly because unfortunately, when we all did the Google polls the Doodle to set up these meetings, there just have been conflicts with other things that I just can't step out of. So I feel bad that I missed the last discussion. But when I went and looked at the things that were in the survey, and the top 3 things I guess it left me a little perplexed. And I think I'm just sitting here trying to process this. And I'm processing it in two ways. One, as a area agency director for 17 years and having dealt with lots and lots of caregivers, and also been in the role of being a caregiver for our, now we have about 50 guardianship clients, and we're professional caregivers in that respect to them. And also as a caregiver in my own life for my 86-year-old mom. And I think maybe part of it is part of what I'm thinking about that are issues for caregivers really fall more into strategy. Because I look at the idea of caregiver training, and I think from the caregivers that I know and also in my own life, I don't have time for that. I just don't have time for that. And I don't know where I would make room in my life for that. And so respite is the thing that comes to like really the top of the barrel for me. Because in order to be a better caregiver and to take training, you need to be able to take time out of the role of caregiving, or to find time to take time off from your job, which I know when I'm taking time off, my sick leave balance used to be fantastic. It used to be fabulous. I have been here for years. And now my sick leave balance is not, it's good, but it's not what it was. And it's all because of other people I've been taking care of. Like, it's not time I'm taking for myself. So, and I think that's the situation with lots and lots of caregivers. I know, Teresa, when you talked about your own story. So maybe it's like a strategy to reach caregiver training, but unilaterally, the thing I see more often than not as a need of caregivers is like, I need to be able to catch my breath. Or I know early days with my mother, I called that Alzheimer's Association 24-hour a day hotline multiple times just to have somebody to talk to about and process the crisis that I was in. And that was a really valuable tool to me. Sometimes they didn't really tell me anything I didn't already know, but it was just, somebody to kind of be there in the moment with you. But those things require you to be able to take time out. And so I really think that somewhere in this mix, respite has to be a very real strategy to help people reach these things, because most caregivers feel like they barely have time to go to the bathroom and brush their teeth or to do anything to take care of themselves. And I agree the training part is important, and having those resources to be able to prevent falls and identify issues that we really need to see a doctor about, or a medication management issue. So maybe it's a strategy that we need to talk more about respite. And I know our resources for respite and the funding that we have through the state under caregivers are pretty limited, because depending upon, if you're looking for a week of assisted living, that's a pretty big chunk of change. Or if you're looking for a care provider to come in, that's a lot of money. So
I agree with you. Respite is a huge issue, but we do have respite funds. My challenge with respite is making the process easier for people to get access to it. But respite wasn't really a big part of the conversation on the first, but we can reintroduce it. One of the things
I think we got to remember that. So the objective, I think respite is huge. Don't get me wrong, but the objective is a really big, high level. And respite is a part of services under something, I think, that is tremendously important, so I just kind of remember, and, Teresa, you can kind of talk, there were some people talking about, maybe getting caregivers to identify as a caregiver. We don't want LRM and all the energy we're doing just to get people to identify that. We need to do that. A lot of things needs to happen, but the big objective is, think about if I'm sitting in front of the governor, what I want to ask the governor to think about. We've got one shot at getting a really large objective over. So you got to kind of think big, and then the strategies under it. So the service resource might be it, and the thing are in there. But I want to give Heidi an opportunity to talk too, of kind of, I know you're just kind of getting rolled up here, but from your expertise, where are you coming at this one?
Well, I know that So here's Mental Health Association. We have kind of like I'll call it like a navigator that works with older adults so that they can so older adults can kind of say, where do I find this? Where do I get this? So I don't think that the older adults that I have the most input about are ones that are like living in the home with other people. I think that my experience and my personal experience is very similar to what I wish I lived in Baltimore County, that I could get because I live on the Eastern Shore. What we offer is my biggest hurdle personally is, I don't have enough time off to take to give to my mother, who has doctor's appointments and can't figure out, like, she wants a system to help, when she falls, the emergency call alert thing. Like, how does she figure out how to use that? Like, I wish I had a navigator that could just check in with her once a week and help her navigate all of those things so that I don't have to take time off work to do those things. The other thing is, like, the senior center that we have is, I've tried to get her to go, but there's hardly ever anybody that ever goes, and she finds it that she is a little more higher functioning than some of the people that are going there, and so she has no interest in staying. And so, in some ways, I see that need as almost like a preventative navigator that can help, like, come in and offer that support to someone, like hands-on, almost like what we have for adults, like PRP worker that can come in and do that sort of support to somebody that can take that load off of the caregiver. It's maybe not down to the respite level, but it is respite. Like, that would be such huge respite for me to have that level of support. And that is the support that we're offering here that has been helpful to the people that we're supporting in Baltimore County.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, anything is, yeah.
I wanted to share that one of the reasons why they were leaning toward training was because of Trualta. In Howard County, we have access to Trualta, which gives us access to training on your mobile phone anywhere you are. So you can be in an emergency room watching videos and learning about different ways to manage not only your caregiving, caring for that person, but your caregiving emotional life, It gives you tools, resources, coping tools. And so it's a really good resource. And I think that the reason why many of us felt like training was a good option was because it's not going to put more strain on the AAA or the Family Caregiver Support Program to provide that training. They just provide Trualta.
I'm going to show real quick. Oh, hold on. So this was a training I went to. This is, let me get the right one. So this is LA Care, and this was the outcome of their training program. I did this in Philly, I want to say. But I mean, they've been doing it a while. And I say LA, now I'm thinking it must be California. But anyway, they've trained this many, reduced ER visits. 95 say they know how better to talk to clinicians, because that was a big one. Better consumer with their things. So this is interesting. I will forward this to you guys too. I just kind of watched this, and this was like, I know several states have adopted this, but I think this is also in conjunction with everything you're saying, and something, Karen, I'm very mindful of. I think respite programs, I think getting dollars into our caregivers' hands are two really, really big things. I'm 100% supportive. I'm also very leery that I don't want LRM. I don't want the outcome of LRM to be everything goes back to the AAAs. You guys know how hard it is to administer what you're administering. Y'all will kill me if all of a sudden we put a bunch back on there. But maybe how to access their respite, or is there respite elsewhere? Like, why is it always got to go through the AAAs? Let's think about the people who go to the AAAs. That's just the person that's called in that gray. What about the other person? So I do think all of the support for the caregiver, that's where that is really huge. And maybe it's the support, the training adds the support. I don't know. I'm just, again, I will send this, and this was definitely self-driven. You can only, if people want to do it, they want to do it. And if they don't, they don't. So, stop sharing. So I'll send that to you guys, but that just was a little more of that training program where, didn't have to, but if it's there and you're just becoming it, it could be there. And part of the training could be how to access resources. It's a big undertaking though, but that's what we're talking about. This objective being big. I mean, a lot of people like the tax credit too, because if you could give tax credits, then that'd be more money back in your pocket. And you could do more respites. You could afford that, and that would be anybody. That'd be something you would claim on your taxes. You wouldn't have to. Your mom or dad wouldn't have to be in that. Or something. So anyway.
Right. So that's why those two are in the, so Jonathan has his hand raised. Go ahead. I'm not the moderator. I don't know why I thought I was. Jonathan has his hand raised. Go ahead, Jonathan. You have a question.
You're leading this. Jonathan, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you. You might have to type it in the chat. Okay, there he is.
And do we have audio? There's the chat.
Yes.
There we go. No, I wanted to just make a couple statements from the YouTube comments that are here. So, one, I want to say Estel is very interested and appreciates the respite. It's considered essential in their personal opinion. Looking at training programs are essential, and many of the AAAs have done a fantastic job with training programs. And this goes back to when Karen was speaking. But however, additional training is needed in combat stress and finances was a statement that was additional to that commentary. One thing that Kathy specifically asked about was our objectives around LRM and if they're considered sustainable for planning for sustainability. So Leslie or anybody who wants to speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, Estelle's with CareForce was another great organization that we're working with. But because you're not in LRM, she unfortunately has to kind of come through this way. So keep making comments, Estelle. I appreciate that. So yes. So the main goal, so our big goal, I would say of all three things we're talking about, all three things are going to need to happen at some point in time. But we can't, any big goal is going to come with a massive undertaking by somebody, and we want to make sure it's not always just the AAA. And for those who don't know what the AAA, that's Area on Aging agencies that administer so many of these programs that help. But it also is going to come with probably policy changes and or adaptations in Annapolis and funding. So that's why the goal is big, and how we get there, because we can't wait. We can't wait for 4 cycles of Annapolis to pass some sort of caregiving respite or caregiving, tax credit, whether or not it's a tax credit or the way it got passed last year was it was actually going to be a fund that caregivers could apply for, but there was no money to apply. So everybody got excited for nothing. So it's going to take a while, but so to me, the strategies are why we're getting there, but every one of them are to be sustainable for the next 10 to 20 years. It will take us 2 or 3 years. It takes planning, and it takes initiatives, and it takes policy changes so that it gets there. And yes, if the funding and if the data stays, then the funding continues on. There's why data is so important. So yes, every single thing is supposed to be sustainable, because every challenge that we're talking about is only going to be bigger in 10 years. So it better be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why the data is so important, to continue to show to Annapolis that there is an economic deficit when it comes to the caregivers because of how hard their job is. And if you don't acknowledge it, it's going to continue to bring the economy down. It's going to continue not to allow that person, and you've got health that's going to come down, the trickle. And oh, by the way, I got an older Maryland I need to talk about. So that's where it kind of all rolls back up. If we don't start changing our narrative about this, we're not going to, it's going to be even worse in 10 years. So everything, yes, is to be sustainable for sure.
I think right now I'm leaning more toward, I don't know if it's training or SB 202, but I think whichever one I think is more closely aligned with the governor's objectives, I think that might get his attention more so. So if I had to pass a vote today, I would probably say SB 202, even though there's no money in SB 202, but it did pass at least once, and he was interested at that time. I don't know what the future of that bill is going to be, but something along that lines, because it's on everyone's mind. You'd probably have to convince them that training is a good idea, although I think you get more bang for your buck with training. People may not want to take advantage of it, but those who do, you're going to see an exponential return on that investment, because it's going to help you with your stress. You're going to be able to manage your life better. Your entire caregiving life is going to improve, because what we don't have, we don't teach those skills in school. So most people are thrust into the caregiving life. They didn't grow up saying, I want to be a family caregiver. It's something that usually happens. And now you have to figure out how to manage it.
Well, and that slide that we looked at is exactly it. They want a resource, because exactly what you just said is, oh, what do I do now? That's the number one question someone says. What do I do now?
And the system is so complicated. I consider myself to be pretty bright, and I still struggle to figure out how to get access to certain things. And the reason why I'm still looking is because I'm trying to connect other people to resources. And I know if I can't find it, they're not going to be able to find it. It takes 2 or 3 people just to be able to say, okay, this is where you go and who you talk to, and here's the form. And then I'll get the form for respite, and it's not even fillable. It's a PDF that I have to print. Well, what if I don't have a printer? Then I have to fill it out by hand and put it in an envelope and mail it?
Right.
Nobody thought through that process at all.
Well, it's like Heidi, you were saying that you got to have a navigator, and there's not enough. I mean, we have a tremendous lack of social workers that even want to get into this field because they don't want to case manage. You know, the kids, my daughter is getting her MSW. She's like, Mom, I want to be a psychologist. Like, she wants to counsel people. She's like, I don't want to be case managing, Mom. I'm like, well, I mean, thanks. Back off. All right. This is my chosen profession. I like my profession. So, and it got you through college. But anyway, we need more of those case manager navigators.
Well, I think the only reason why we need case manager navigators is because the system is not set up like it should. And in business, there are systems that can automate the entire process, where you could go online and fill out a form and submit it and sign it electronically in a matter of minutes. Someone can get that and it can process automatically. It doesn't have to go through, it doesn't have to be wrapped up in all this red tape. It is because people set it up that way, and it's not designed to help the family caregiver. I don't know the objective behind it, but there's no reason for it. Right. This is 2024, so it doesn't have to operate that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. You said I have no crystal ball. I have no crystal ball, and I am not an Annapolis know-it-all. I suspect, though, highly, that Senate Bill 202 is going to continue on its own journey, and that the Maryland Commission on Caregiving is going to push that one, which potentially could lead LRM to want to push another one. If you're pushing services, if you're pushing training, we could make the strategies under training to be the services and how to get trained into how to effectively use respite. And maybe one of the strategies is we need more respite to help train and to train them how to use it, how to select someone, how to find out financially if you qualify and get money. I mean, those could be some of the strategies potentially.
I like that. I like the way you're thinking about that. Ashley looks like she wants to say something. She hasn't said anything in a while, so I'm calling on you. What are you thinking?
No,
I'm still struggling with this objective. And I think I'm trying to find the right words to say what's in my head because there's a million things in my head. But to me, I talked about respite. I think respite is a strategy to support family caregivers. And if you can support family caregivers, you're thereby supporting the care recipient. And we've already talked about how that trickles out into the economy and the community and all the other things. I feel as though caregiver training is also a strategy to support the caregiver in taking better care to reduce hospital admissions because of falls, or how to help with managing medications. I feel like there's something above that that is the bigger objective.
Well, I think the strategy on training though, Karen, and what the other states have done, I'm only just watching other states, and it's a good comment. I know where you're headed, but the strategy is that there was a statewide training program established by multi-sector. So it could be within Medicaid, it could be within caregiving, it could be within the health system, all this kind of stuff. And that there is a statewide platform that once someone becomes identified as a caregiver, which we already have a definition, they would have a free access to this resource guide kind of thing. That's how the other states did it. But it was statewide objective, statewide supported training program, which would I don't know if it would come under MDOA or it might come under the Department of Education, but it was a real large statewide adapted program. That's what the other states did it.
Okay. So Ash, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm only thinking on the same topic. So like I work with the diverse community, and I'm only thinking in my own head that how many people would actually be willing to take this training. And I think the chances will be really low that anyone would be willing to just go out and even take out the time. There are multiple factors at play. A lot of diverse community members, they do not even want to get into these kind of programs. There could be language barriers. They sometimes just do not feel comfortable getting into a different community, even getting to a hospital, even if there are interpreters, even if they have other facilities available. A lot of those people just do not have the confidence to get in there. So, and I'm only thinking about from the perspective of my own family. So we're currently taking care of 2 of our parents. But let's say, even if I'm willing to go into a training, I'm wondering, would anyone else be willing to go ahead and get involved into that training or even to explore that program? And I feel that the chances would be really low for them to opt this, like just to explore this option. So yeah, I'm just not really leaning towards that as a main objective or as a main goal for us.
I appreciate you sharing that. You gave me something to think about when you mentioned them about the language barrier. I hadn't thought about that. Jonathan has his hand raised. Go ahead, Jonathan. You have questions from YouTube?
Yes, I have a question from YouTube. It's from Estelle, and she was asking, doesn't the AARP tax credit require a family caregiver to spend at least $2,001 before they can claim any additional money spent on caregiving? Or would it be set up differently in Maryland?
I don't know the tax. Well, there is no tax credit. There is no state tax credit. You're talking about the federal one. And I don't, I'd probably ask a accountant, but I do think you're right on that one. How it would be set up in the state of Maryland, that's still to be determined. I can tell you what Colorado did. Colorado, one of the M states, not Michigan, but it was Minnesota or one of those, and they were pretty led on. Their tax credit was simply if you qualify, it's just like the child credit, that if you qualified under the definition of doing it, you got your credit. And child credit is what, $3,200 per child. So if you have a child under 18, you get credit, and that kind of comes back like that. So that's how those 2 states did it, because they did not want to complicate it. It also at the same time allowed those states to start a registry of who identified as a caregiver, which then allowed them to have data, because so many people still don't call themselves caregivers.
Right.
So I don't know how Maryland would do it. They ended up turning the bill upside down. So it ended up being nowhere near a tax credit how they passed it. So
maybe we can do it again. The next time it'll be a tax credit. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, I don't know where, I think a couple of senators are talking that around, yeah.
Mm.
Karen?
They
I
are.
just wanted to go back to the thought that I started before and to pick up on what Ash
Mavis.
said and also what Heidi said. And I feel like I'm struggling to find the right words to express what I'm trying to say, so bear with me. Again, going back to the idea of caregiver training being the objective, I feel that's too small. You know, Heidi talked about needing a navigator, and I kind of go back to what's been established recently with the dementia navigation program in the area agencies. And I'm not saying it would need to sit with us, but I think a bigger need for caregivers is for them to feel supported in whatever their crisis need is today in this moment. And the word navigator is a great kind of all-encompassing phrase that really is what you're looking for. A traffic cop, you're looking for somebody to point you in the right direction, whether that be that you need a program or you need a caregiver who can be able to communicate with your care recipient in their native tongue, in their own language, or you need somebody that can help you figure out how to get your mom to and from doctor's appointments because she doesn't drive, but she would be okay to take care of herself once she got there. Or you know, you're trying to figure out, you've moved a family member in with you, and now you have to figure out what you're going to do about their house and what's the best thing for you to do. There's so many things that caregivers need, and there are so many reasons that people become caregivers. It could be dementia. It could be physical frailty. It could be both of those things combined. It could be behavioral health concerns. No two caregiving situations are exactly alike, but the ability to have somebody to call who is truly here to support that caregiver, it's bigger than training. Training could be something that is a tool that you connect caregivers to. But for me, I feel like that objective is too small, and it might be a strategy towards other objectives, but that word that Heidi used of navigator made me think about the dementia navigators. And I feel like people just need to know where to call. You know, who's the walking encyclopedia of the knowledge I need? Who can tell me how I can find an elder law attorney? Who can tell me how I figure out what I'm going to do about my mother's taxes that haven't been filed in 4 years? Or who can tell me how I can connect with transportation?
So we're running out of time. I just want to say, Karen, I appreciate what you're saying. You're exactly right. I like the idea. We're going to add Navigator to our discussion on October 15th. We'll add that on there. And if there's anything else anyone can think of between now and then, just shoot me an email and we'll start the conversation there where we left off today.
Well, and everybody start thinking about what the top one can be and how you work the other strategies in. The strategies is where we have a lot of opportunity. All right. Let everybody get back.
Sorry, I know that was a bit abrupt. Did you have enough time to
No,
wrap up?
that's okay. No, we were, listen, I think we could have talked for another hour, quite
Okay.
honestly. Yeah. And this is where, again, you know, I know that the caregiver, you know, we have another one next week. And if anyone else needs to do other sub talks between now and then, I mean, we may just need to, right? So I'm okay. I'm okay with the subgroups, you know, going on. Just remember subgroups, any chairs of subgroups, if we're doing them, we still have to meet some of the other requirements. So we have to, okay, good. So we need to make sure, Kathy, that we put that within the Open Meetings Act. So we have to post it on our website and stuff so we can get Jonathan to work with you on that. So
Okay. I just thought since this time seems to work, if the
Yeah.
50 plus and multi-generational, if that works for you guys, if anybody, let me know and we can go ahead and schedule that.
All right. Well, why don't we, since Kathy, why don't you go ahead and tell us what y'all talked about, and we'll take 10 minutes and where are y'all at? And let me look at my calendars, and JJ can and all that kind of stuff. And what kind of progress
Where-
did you make?
Where are we at? It is a huge, huge, huge topic. And I think we decided that it is a huge, huge topic.
Yep.
No, I think we know that there are some strategic things we need: links to labor, awareness campaign. We definitely need data and metrics. We need policies to advance goals. There's separating out economics, and and more partnerships, public-private partnerships, and again the emphasis on the intergenerational, multi-generational workforce, because one cannot do it without the other. So, but that was kind of where we got, and we want to increase the number of age inclusive employers, and really promote that multi-generational workforce. But we need more time. We
Yeah.
were kind of
Yeah.
but it's a big one.
So just looking at my calendar, and y'all don't need me, but so you're talking about next Tuesday, 1 to 2:30, is that right? On the 15th?
Yeah, if anybody, I just threw that out to the group. If that works or doesn't work, if you want to put it in the chat or send me a note, I'll go ahead and schedule it.
Okay, I need to get you, Kathy, I will send an email with you,
Okay.
Julia, and JJ on, just so we're sending it in the right manner, because we have to kind of follow the Open Meetings Act, since this is kind of a statewide thing. So
Okay.
yeah, but that works. I mean, I've got something, but I will.
I mean, we can adjust the time and move it back a little bit if that's.
Apparently, aren't you and I meeting at that time? Is it you and I meeting, or am I meeting with another county? It's me and you. Yeah.
That's me. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we could potentially you and I could do something offline. So, okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
You're right. Now, as soon as you said that, I'm like, wait, I knew I had somebody.
Mhm.
We'll figure it out.
And we can adjust.
Okay.
as
So we'll
long
do
as
some
it goes.
adjusting, but I think you're right, Kathy. And so I like all of you basically filled up your strategy list that's a lot of stuff, right? You can see how big it starts to get. You're right. It's huge, but we got to get it out on a plan, and we got to get it in front of the governor and the legislatures. I will say the governor, while he's very important, it's the legislators that are going to be the ones that are moving the bills. And we got to get, we got to find our budget means people and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it is coming up with, because it's almost like there's 3 levels. There's government, there's employers, there's potential employees, there's a divide between the ages, there's a divide between the economics. It's really not a one size fits all, but really, it really needs to be well-rounded, like a village. It really needs to be a village that supports our older worker and creates that dynamic workforce, because we can't, just as the youngers can't do anything without the olders and vice versa, employees can't do anything without employers. Creating new employers that are age friendly is important, but employers need to know that that's critical, and to get the word out and to take it seriously, and to create, awareness, but also put in the supports to create the success for the employees and employers. So we will get there though, because this is a great opportunity, and we're not going to miss it.
Yeah. Well, this is the platform to get it started, right? That's
Yeah.
that's how I feel too, Kathy. So great. All right. Teresa, you want to kind of report from the group that I was sitting in on?
Sure, family caregiver, the family caregiver group, we took a look at promoting economic growth, and some of the high level objectives that we identified are training, direct care provider registry, the SB 202 tax credit / voucher, and also a new introduction to the list is the caregiver navigator concept that was shared by Heidi, I think, and Karen. And so if I had to wager a guess, I would say we're really narrowing in on two, SB 202, and maybe this caregiver navigator, maybe training too. I don't know. We still have a lot to discuss. We have another meeting on October 15th at 11 a.m. We're going to come out of that meeting with one high level objective and start working on our 8 strategic goals. And so I'm forecasting that right now here on this call, and you heard me say it. And that's pretty much it.
Listen, the training to provide some sort of statewide training program may be the strategy under navigation.
Exactly.
If they need it, they then can get it, you know.
Mhm.
I think there's also another, you know, hospitals were forced by statute and they did the right thing. But, you know, think about anyone who's had a baby. When you leave with a lot of training that the hospital does for you because you're a new parent. You now need to know what to do to be successful. Or if you have some sort of diagnosis, there is a requirement within, you know, the hospitals to do certain amounts of training upon discharge, you know, things like that. So trainings come from all, not just necessarily going to a class or taking something online, but, you know, when you're in the middle of something. So I think there's opportunities around that always. So, yep, good. All right. Cheney, what did you guys, have you narrowed it down? Did you come up with one?
So we are going to have 2 broad recommendations. We
All right.
have gone through the process of combining. We had 4 that we sort of rolled up into 2. And I will say that the caregiving or caregiver registry is also something that we are prioritizing on our side. So I know Teresa just mentioned it. So that might be a way for us to, I know you're on the family caregiving side, but that also might be a way for us to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So I will say that the first recommendation is going to cover enhancing wages and overall compensation to boost recruitment and retention rates within the direct care workforce. And the second is to enhance state reporting and data collection systems alongside the creation of the direct care workforce registry to improve workforce tracking and planning. And so we got through, because we had originally had 4 recommendations, we had like 8 strategies that our smaller group had sort of put on paper before. So we started to narrow that list down to the 8 that would go under that first recommendation around wages and compensation and recruitment. And so we're going to continue to iterate. We will likely meet again as a small working group, but our students will probably send out a doodle poll to folks that are part of our group so that we can get something on the books sooner rather than later. And I will say also, before you go to the next person, that we are working to engage direct care workers. So we have a brief survey going out in the next week or so, just to get there, just to make sure we're on track and speak into their needs.
Well, listen, I think you said one thing, Cheney. I think if you put, and that's why I said, and Karen, I know you were struggling. You kept saying you were struggling with your words, but you actually kept making me think. So thank you. But that's the objective is exactly what we're talking about. It's the real high level. And a lot of times we get to thinking that objective is actually the strategy. You know, building a registry may be the strategy that supports something else bigger. So it's why you just got to keep talking it and walking it through. But it has been talked. It's building a registry for direct caregivers and for caregivers is absolutely huge. And it is going to take a massive cross collaboration, but I don't want that to scare that it would be a good strategy, because the strategy might be that it's going to support, something better off. So there's, just that one. So I think, yes, Cheney, in both of those subgroups, it's probably going to be a good chance that that's going to be a strategy, if not for one, under both, which is building it. And we've talked about it a little just within your group. The Board of Nursing has some sort of they've got a list of some sort, but it's not encompassing enough, and it's certainly not accessible to the family caregiver,
right?
And wouldn't meet their needs anyway. But there's a roundabout way. I mean, there's a start of something small there.
Yeah, that was something that came up that we didn't get to today, but that we want to be able to surmise. And like one strategy is like leveraging all the data that already exists, whether it's, from the Board of Nursing, the electronic visit verification. If there's existing models that there's a couple called Care Yaya and Karina, like there's different ways that people are already sort of doing, and state models that folks are using. So we're trying to just find the language to convey that in, one strategy rather than 8, so we can like maximize our strategies and recommendations.
Right. Okay. Well, good. Does anybody else have anything for the greater good or brought from your, yeah, Monica, go ahead, please. You're on mute.
Sorry. I was just curious because in our discussion, it came up that there's another group working on economic opportunities. Is that, I think, was it Diane or is there enough? And she said we don't have to worry so much about the economics, or maybe I'm not. Kathy, do you remember that?
About economics?
Yeah, well, we were talking about entrepreneurship and economic opportunities, and I thought Nancy was the one who brought up that there's a fourth group, or there's there's another maybe another group talking about
Within Longevity Ready Maryland or somewhere else within the state of Maryland?
Or you know what? Maybe it was not within Longevity Ready.
There, I mean,
Nancy, you're on mute.
Yeah.
I think she might be talking about Izzy's work group.
Mm-mm.
No?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, it was not me who brought that
Oh,
up.
okay. Let me think. Was it?
Yeah, I mean, so there we have affording longevity, but affording longevity is more about affordable housing, affordable health care,
Yeah.
accessible housing, affording, I can't remember what her fourth one is, but it's around that one more.
Okay. Maybe I misunderstood. Who's from from Johns Hopkins in our group?
Janie.
No, who was in our subgroup of the
for housing.
older worker.
Oh, for older worker.
Right, I have it. Nope, wrong list.
Yeah, I don't.
You know,
I had it up here.
Maybe. Okay, whatever. It's
Monica, I'll send it to you when I find the list. It's
okay. Well, I maybe I misheard her, because did anybody else hear that? We don't have to worry about that because another group is dealing with that.
No, I said that like the kind of the things were coming up across the board in the 4 groups were
No.
well.
Okay.
No, I don't have it.
Don't worry.
The buy-in and this data.
Okay. All right. Never
Well,
mind.
No. I'll say though, Monica, and I do think all groups need to do this. And again, we only have so much time. We got to get to moving. We could talk about this till we all, cross the bridge, right? We got to get to working and doing something. And, the worst mistake of any plan is not starting, not doing something. So, I don't want anyone to ever be disappointed that we didn't get it going. And I think everything we talk about is going to probably come into this plan, just the start. But also, Monica, what you're saying is there's a lot of other efforts that are going on throughout the state. And it was something that our secretary was very big about, which is don't try to recreate the wheel and don't try to forego other commissions and or task force that have done studies in the past and already have data. Might need to be updated data, but is data, or they have suggestions. And I think probably everybody sitting on this call has been a part of some workforce group that has had a suggestion that has gone nowhere. This is my 3rd governor, and it will be my 3rd direct workforce group, because that was the industry I came from. And some things have happened, but there was a lot of suggestions and things that haven't gone anywhere. But if we don't ever suggest something, we don't get anything. So what we want to find out is what work has maybe been done before, or what are the other people's doing? There's no sense in us duplicating that. I would much rather run the objective. And that part of the strategies could be to go and find everyone who's talking about this one particular thing and to come up with some sort of statewide. These are how commissions get created. So yeah, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe what you were referring to was that I did bring up the change the trajectory of aging strategic plan for the Department of Aging. I did mention that, and I mentioned that there was very little about workforce development in that plan. But I would like to know if that plan is still going forward. Is it still operative? Should we be coordinating our thinking with some of the data that's in there, or what is the status of that strategic plan 2022 to 2025? If any.
Not 100% sure of what strategy you're talking about.
No, it's a strategic plan from the Department of Aging. It's called Changing the Trajectory of Aging. It's a big plan.
That's it. That plan is, they're currently developing the next one. And I believe that these work groups will also inform that. So it's a shorter one, it's like the 4-year, and then the LRM will be the 10-year. So I think, Leslie, if it's okay if I chime in.
Yeah, go, please.
So going off of that is our strategic plan, but it is currently being updated, and information from this will be used to.
Well, yeah, so every state agency, so only 8 months ago, I worked in private industry. Meg knows that. I'm so new to state, it's crazy. So I had to learn this, Nancy, but every state agency has to have a 4-year state plan, or else we could never get funded. And then we get a lot of monies from the federal, and that is our 4-year plan of what are you doing to prepare the state and to run the state in your particular thing. So it could be a little of that. I mean, it might just be wording that I'm missing on, Nancy. So I apologize. It's probably me not understanding exactly what my own department were doing. But there's also, in addition to LRM running, we also have another really large program, which is all based around ageism and how to, in cross-sector planning, that everything that is done in the state of Maryland is done with thinking about the age of something. And I might have said this before, and the best example someone said is the Department of Transportation. If we could have our way and we could change this within the state, you will never pass a policy unless you say it has to run through the age. It has to run through not our department, but it has to run through the aging test. Like, so if all of a sudden you decided that you're going to do bus stops, not on the corners, but in the middle, you got to run that through an age test, which is that going to be okay? For people that are older, 50 and older, 75 and older, that kind of thing. So that might be a little of it. And I see Julia just put in some of these plans in here. They're all public. So Nancy, there's nothing that we're not doing. So whatever you said, we probably are still doing it, but LRM will be definitely working within that. So, all right, we have a few minutes left. Monica, I know you got your hand raised, so I'll make sure.
I just found our list, and it was Diane Martin with UMBC, who talked about another group that was working on this. So maybe, Kathy, we can follow up and see what that was all about.
Great.
I will ask her.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, so everybody, we have a few more meetings to go. We're kind of rolling down. We'll get the objectives, strategies. We keep talking about it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your conversations and your expertise. It really gets me. This is all I think about. My family would be so tired of talking about this at the end of the night tonight, but I can't help myself. I just get to going and going and going. I think about this and I think about this and I think about this. So I like having this group of y'all that help me keep talking about all these things. So thank you. Thank you. Our next meeting is 2 weeks away. We have a couple of subgroups in the middle that we will work on. And in the meantime, I just encourage, please, if there's something that JJ or Julia or I could do that, communication, getting these slides out, communicating studies or whatever, really want to make sure we're making it as easy for you guys to access any of this information so that we're doing a little homework in between here and there, and we're taking best advantage of our time. On our next work group, it will be our last call, but if we have to have another one, we can, but we will use that opportunity, just like today, of about a 45-minute work group. So all subcommittee chairs know that you'll also have that time to continue working on that's already on everyone's calendar, and we can kind of keep sending that out. So, all right. Well, if there is nothing more, then I'm going to wish everyone a very happy Tuesday. Have a great week. Enjoy this wonderful Maryland weather. And thanks for so much. And we'll see everybody within a week or two.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thanks.